Hi everyone, this screencast will help you to understand how to read and unpack Common Core state standards. We're going to get started with how to read the English Language Arts standards. You'll remember the language arts standards have 4 different strands: reading, writing, speaking and listening, and language. When you see a standards page at the very top left-hand corner, you're going to see what strand is being presented and what grade level. In this case, it's K through 5. Next, under that, you're going to see the grade levels and the college and career readiness key concepts. You'll notice that there are 3 grade levels on the same page, and if you looked closely, you can see that each of the concepts kind of follow along. They get a little bit more progressed as the grade gets progressed. Next, you're going to see the actual student standards and the objectives that the students are supposed to be able to master by the end of that particular grade. The mathematics standards are slightly different than the ELA standards. You'll notice that at the very top they do start out with the actual standards defining what the student should understand and be able to do. In mathematics, they have clusters, which are actual groups of related standards that go together. One thing that's interesting to note is with the clusters, they do not have to be taught in the exact order that they are seen. So if a cluster has 4 objectives, you do not need to teach them in sequential order. You could teach any of the 4 in any order you choose. And then finally, with mathematics, there are going to be domains, which are larger groups of related standards. This is what it looks like in the actual math format. You'll see up at the top, we have the category that is being addressed in mathematics. In this case, it's numbers and operations in base 10. And you can see along the side, it should say 3.NBT. That stands for 3rd grade, and it stands for the numbers and operations in base 10. You'll see the standard is in bold, the main concept, and then the individual standards are underneath. And again, those 3 standards in this particular example go together, so it's considered clustered. Now, let's take a look at how to unpack the actual standards themselves. We're going to start off again with the English Language Arts standard. In this particular instance, we're using the example of a writing 3rd grade standard. You'll notice in this one, it's standard 6. It says, with guidance and support from adults, use technology to produce and publish writing using keyboarding skills as well as to interact and collaborate with others. You'll notice also right here along the side, sometimes you'll see this same standard listed in this fashion. The CCSS stands for Common Core State Standards. ELA is English Language Arts Literacy. The W stands for writing. The 3 stands for the grade level, in this case 3rd grade, and the 6 stands for what standard is being addressed. Now, here's our same standard broken down. When we're unpacking it, the very first thing we want to do is we want to go through and we want to circle the verbs that are actually listed in the standard. The verbs in this case would be what the students have to do. So in this instance, you'll see that they need to use technology, they need to produce, publish, interact, and collaborate. The next step is going to be to underline the nouns, what the students have to know or what they have to be able to produce. And in this case, we'll know that they need to be able to produce writing, and they're going to be using keyboarding skills to do that. So you could see here we have our nouns and our verbs already designated. The next step is to take those nouns and verbs and list them separately in terms of the concepts and skills. So for that particular standard, we know that one of the skills is going to be keyboarding skills. We know that the students are going to have to produce writing, publish writing, interact with others, and collaborate with others. So these are the skills broken down that we're going to need to focus on when we're teaching our students and having them try and master that particular standard. The next step is to actually take those skills and those concepts and determine what level of Bloom's taxonomy each of those concepts or skills falls under. The reason we do this is it helps us to see the level of rigor that's taking place in each one of these concepts and skills, and that can help you determine how much time you need to actually focus on each particular one. In this case, you'll see that the keyboarding skills are a lower level Bloom's taxonomy level, However, it can take a number of weeks to several months for the students to master this. But again, it is considered a lower level of blooms. And then you could see that the creating, the publishing, producing, as well as interacting and collaboration are higher levels. Next, we'll take a look at how to unpack the Common Core State Standards for mathematics. In this particular case, you could see that we're going to be taking a look at a high school objective or standard, as you will. And in this one, we're looking at circles, and you can see up at the top, this G stands for geometry, and it's dash C for circles. In this case, we're looking again at a cluster of standards, but we're only going to focus on standard 3. Construct the inscribed and circumscribed circles of a triangle and prove properties of angles for a quadrilateral inscribed in a circle. Same thing as with the ELA standard. You could see how the math standard is written. We know it's Common Core State Standard. We know it's math. We know it's a high school geometry, and it's a circle standard. And in this case, it's standard 3. So we do the same thing that we're doing. We're going to take our verbs first, what the students have to do, and we're going to circle those. In this particular instance, you'll see that the students need to construct and they need to prove. Next, we take our nouns. What do they have to construct? Well, they have to construct inscribed and circumscribed circles of a triangle. What do they have to prove? They have to prove properties of angles for a quadrilateral inscribed in a circle. Once that's done, we do the same thing we did with the ELA standard. We move into the concepts and the skills. We know that there's a lot of vocabulary that's hit in this standard. Inscribed, circumscribed, circle, triangle, angle, quadrilateral, even properties. We know that the students are going to have to construct inscribed and circumscribed circles of a triangle, and also that they're going to have to prove properties of angles for a quadrilateral inscribed in a circle. So these are all of the things that we're going to have to teach to the students in order for them to master this standard. Same thing like we did with ELA, we take a look at the Bloom's taxonomy. Again, similar to the keyboarding skills, the vocabulary is at a lower level of Bloom's, but again, it's just as critical and just as important for the students to know that in order to master the standard. And then you'll see obviously that the constructing and proving of the actual concepts are at a higher level, analyze and create and even evaluate. So we've gone ahead and we've identified the nouns and the verbs in each of the standards. We've also identified the concept and the skills in each standard that's needed, and also the level of Bloom's taxonomy for each concept. So what's next? The very next thing is to start to develop lessons that teach the standards. And in many instances, especially with the ELA, when they mention technology, this is where we're going to add our technology component. I hope that gave you a good idea of how to unpack the Common Core State Standards.